St. Philip's, I would like to introduce you to the cabal that is taking over the church. These are the dastardly people who are plotting the overthrow of all of you, and their sole purpose in life is to make you miserable. No. There is nothing that I just said that hasn't come to me via some people of this congregation as a rumor. Yes. I would like to introduce to you the vestry, minus a couple of people who are out of town, who were elected by you, and according to the canons of the church have the power to make all decisions concerning the future of St. Philip's. It is with them and through them that I will be working and that everybody else will be working. This middle person here, Jeff, is on the vestry, but he's also on the strategic planning group, as is Fallon Pierce and Bill Bittenbender. Both of them had to be out of town today. And Dick Lee, who had to be out of town today. This group of people were called to a ministry by this group of people to study what is going on in our congregation and to make recommendations for future strategic actions to be taken on behalf of the congregation. These people work for those people. You got that? Everybody got it? Are there any questions? Am I going too fast? Okay? Now, the reason that Jeff is here is because at every meeting, including the last vestry meeting last Tuesday night, we heard a report from these people to these people and got assent for the next steps. This is all being done orderly and in purpose. I want to say two things about this group of people. Okay? Number one is, if you have any questions about what's going on, talk to one of them. Or talk to me. Because we know. Do not talk to one another. Because you don't know. Okay? Secondly, if you hear a rumor, wrap it up in a box, tie it with a bow, and toss it in the garbage. But not without first checking it out with us. Anybody here can tell you what's going on. Are we clear? Okay? I have been told, I have a rumor book, and I think what I'm going to do is on my last Sunday, I'm going to read the rumor book for the sermon. Do you know that I was sent here by the bishop to overthrow the vestry and appoint my own vestry? Did you know that? I have so much power, it is awesome. Between your ears, not in real life, but... Okay, so I wanted you to see them. I want you to know there is no secrecy. The way we are doing things are going to necessarily involve a time lapse. Okay? I'm working with the vestry first, and then we're working through the strategic planning group, and then we're coming to you. The stuff that we are doing in this forum, that we did in this forum this spring, that we're going to do this summer and this fall, is nothing more than things that we did with this group already. When the strategic planning group makes their report to the vestry, and they either accept, reject, or amend it, well, theoretically, accept or amend it, we will then come to you. We will not come to you before that. Why? Because we're ideating. We're tossing ideas out. And some ideas are outside the box, and ideas that are outside the box are sometimes pretty squirrely. Okay? We don't want you to think we're going off half-cocked. We're doing this very deliberately. Do you understand? Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If I may make a comment, Canon Jim agreed to see me on a one-to-one. I didn't approach the vestry for various reasons, and I just want to say that I found it a very helpful experience to chat with him. He gave me an hour, and I had a number of questions. It was very civilized, and can you hear me back there? Yes, I can hear you. But I think that I just recommend, thank you, I just recommend, if I may, because you did say to me, feel free to let others know that they should come and visit you, and I think it was extremely helpful. I see our canon as a neutral person, with whom, okay? So I felt very comfortable in meeting with him, and he was very gracious. We didn't agree on everything. That was not the point of the meeting. It was for me to become better informed. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me play Phil Donahue. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you, vestry. I also want to introduce these three people for you who are not members of the vestry. Okay, this is Janet Fudge. She is the clerk of the vestry, appointed. She's the one that takes all the minutes. And I need to tell you, she is diligent in so doing. If you ever want to take a look, go out there and see where the vestry minutes are. They are copious and they are accurate. And if they're not, she'll beat on me, so make sure that they're accurate. Bob Fuchs is our treasurer. He does all the financial stuff. He meets with the vestry. All three of these people meet with the vestry, but they are not members of the vestry, nor do they vote. Okay? Ray D. Giuseppe, I'll get it, I will, is our chancellor. Chancellor means it's a really sexy version of the word lawyer. He's the person we go to when we have contracts and things that we're concerned about, make sure that they're legally kosher, I think is probably the way to say that. Okay? And then we've got the planning committee. All of these people, oh, Janet is also, that's right. Thank you. One final thing. You didn't think I was going to talk about stewardship today, but I am. The stewardship of time required to do this work is enormous. The vestry, in addition to doing the liaisoning they do with the various groups that they meet with, in addition to, not this last meeting, but the meeting before, 2.5, 3 hours, okay, also meets with me about once every other month for an entire Saturday to be doing this work. They're giving up a whole lot of time to bring their talents and skills given by God for the ministry of this congregation, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude. The Strategic Planning Committee also gives a great deal of time. They are actually going to try and do this thing in 5 months, which is phenomenal in terms of the amount of work and that requires for them, in addition to the work they have to do with one another in between the meetings, that requires 5 4-hour meetings that we're actually meeting next Friday for 4 hours from 1 to 5. So it is also a stewardship of time, and we thank them for their talent as well. Okay, now you all can go sit down, and we'll get to the other part of this. Tell you about what we're going to do today. We have paper, copious paper. You can kill more trees in the name of Jesus. Pass these out. I'll save these for a little later. I work for. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you said that. What's the transition state? So the question is, are we able to participate in this evaluation process? Yes. Yes. I want to tell you in this instance, whatever rule I'm up to, okay, which is I care way more about the attending congregation than I do the non-attending congregation in terms of their opinion for this community. So I know you to be present as a member of the person here, and we care very much about your opinion. So absolutely, anybody who's here gets a vote. Okay, and I agree with the emphasis on the word game. will be taught. When I worked for the Diocese of Southern Ohio, for the bishop, he kept talking about the role of the diocese is to encourage health of congregations. We wanted to have healthy congregations. And he kept saying, healthy congregations. Several of us said, Bishop, what is a healthy congregation? And he said, I don't know, you figure it out. So we set on a journey that I started but did not complete. This is completed by the guy who took my job, whose name is Jack Kepke. He is now the canon to the ordinary of the Bishop of Southern Ohio, and a very dear friend. He then spread it out to Province 5. Now, you get a bonus point if you can tell me what Province 5 is. Oh, come on, we did this.
We're for.
We're for, that's correct.
The region of the country in which the dioceses are grouped together.
It's a region of the country that is a conglomeration of dioceses that come together to meet because their geography has problems that are unique to that area. Province 5 is the upper Midwest. So everything from Illinois and Missouri on that side to Ohio, Indiana, places like that. So, we talked about what we wanted to do was describe what a healthy congregation was. And we checked this out. And it's been tested now in a number of dioceses with a number of bishops and a number of people, lay folks and priests and deacons who've been around the church for a long time, who say, yeah, we look at that, healthy congregations exhibit these behaviors. So what I want to do is go over these 8 areas and have you grade them. You have in front of you a grading sheet. You don't have to put your name on it, and you can see the grading system on the right-hand side, right? 1 is horrible. 5 is excellent. Okay, and everything in between. Okay, so 1 is bleh. And 5 is hallelujah. I just wanted to use religious terms. Bleh, that's a religious term. Okay. So we got together and we came up with what we thought were the attributes of a healthy congregation. Now, I probably am going to ruin this whole thing because I need to click this clicker.
Are you just forwarding?
Yeah, I know, but it's not forwarded because this thing is keeping us. Here we go. All right. The first characteristic of a healthy congregation is a clear sense of identity. That is enough vagueness to make everybody wonder what that means. So we fleshed it out. Members expressed an identity that was unabashedly Christian. Would you believe there are lots of Episcopalians who are afraid to say the word Christian? Okay. Every member was able to articulate the gospel story and why it matters to them. And, freely articulates that story to others in their own words. In healthy congregations, you have people who know who they are, who know that they are Christ's own, who know their story and Christ's story together, and could tell somebody else why it is they're followers of Jesus. That's what it means to have a clear sense of identity. Are there any questions?
So you're asking us about what we think this congregation.
Correct. If there are no questions, you may now grade St. Philip's 1 to 5. No, we're saying about how we feel about the church. The whole church. St. Philip's Episcopal Church, Southport, North Carolina.
When you say articulated, you mean witnessing.
I do.
Is there one Episcopal church in the world that will get a good grade in that?
There are some Episcopal churches that will get a good grade in that, yes. Will they get a 5? Not too many. I know a 5. I know 1 5.
Okay. Wow.
Okay? Right. We are not historically like Southern Baptist. We are not asking you to go on the street corner and beat people up with pamphlets or say that the Word of God was dictated, to the gospel authors by God and they wrote down what he said. We're not saying that. We're saying, do you know the story of Holy Week? And do you know why that story is your story? And could you tell somebody else, not in theological religious terms, but in your terms, why are you a follower of Christ? You are the expert on why you're a follower of Christ. And I've heard some of you do that. This is hard work, isn't it? Okay, this is the easy one. These are going in hard, descending order of hardness. Everybody, yes?
Just a question about, this is sort of describe every member able to articulate the gospel. It's sort of an informed and mature congregation. What about, where would you place the question about people who are coming and searching and want to learn and wouldn't an identity be welcoming and teaching and inviting and all that?
Let me get through all 8 and then make sure that we covered what you're asking. But the answer is, I know 3rd graders that can articulate their faith better than adults because they're not constrained by the embarrassment we all feel because we were taught not to talk about religion. I know 3rd graders that are really great at getting people to come to church, and 55-year-olds who wouldn't ever ask somebody to come to church. Ready to move on? We only have 7 more to go. I'm going the wrong way. That would be why this is not working. Radical hospitality. Okay, what does that mean? Okay? It means deliberately invites, welcomes, and receives and cares for those who are strangers. And it means the entire congregation. I will tell you a story. I've told this to the vestry. This is about the most unwelcoming congregation in the United States. It's an Episcopal congregation. And I'll name it. It's St. Mark's, San Antonio, Texas. Big downtown church. It takes up 2 city blocks. I'm going there on a Sunday. I walk around the church twice. I couldn't even find the way in. So, number 1, no signs like go this way, nothing like that. I followed one pathway and came to a locked door. So I figured that wasn't the way in. So I went to another pathway, and it was right in the middle of the building, and I opened it up, and sure enough, to my left were the parish hall and offices, and to my right was the church. And there were 2 ushers standing in front of the door with leaflets in hand, talking to one another. I walked up, all smiley-faced. I didn't have my collar, okay? All smiley-faced, and they kept talking to each other. And so I cleared my throat, and they kept talking to each other. So I finally said, "Excuse me, can I have a bulletin?" And they said, "Oh yeah," and they gave me a bulletin, but stayed in front of the door talking to one another. I said, "Can I get in?" And they said, "Sure." And then someone opened the door. No problem, I go in. As is my custom, I knelt down. I'm kneeling down at prayer, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and this woman says, "Excuse me, you're in my pew, would you please move?" So I moved. I'm a make love, not war kind of guy, I'm kneeling down, saying my prayer, tap on my left shoulder. Woman says, "You're in my pew, would you please move?" Twice I moved. I finally found a seat that no one obviously needed, and went to a glorious service. It was an absolutely glorious service. The choir was awesome, the sermon was great, beautiful church service. On the way out, shake hands with the clergy, you know. They said, well, won't you have lemonade on the lawn? I said, okay. So I went to have lemonade on the lawn. I stood in front of the lemonade place, the table with lemonade on it, right? Two women talking. Pitcher of lemonade, empty cups. I cleared my throat. Two women talking. Pitcher of lemonade, empty cups. Finally I said, can I have some lemonade? They said, if you insist. So I took the lemonade, I poured it on the lawn, and I said, there's your lemonade on the lawn, St. Mark's, and I left. Not radical hospitality. Okay? Helps the stranger enter into the life of the congregation. Those of you who are newer can talk about this. I had a conversation with somebody this past week, a member of the congregation, who said he was here for 2 years before anybody talked to him. Just saying.
So we shouldn't give it a 5.
You can give it whatever you think. Okay? Actively seeks to engage people they don't know as opposed to their friends. The most segregated hour of church is the coffee hour. Everybody talks to their friends. And if you're new, you either have to break in, do a cross body block on somebody. You know, there are some churches like that. That's why when I was at Church of the Redeemer in Cincinnati, I didn't let them have a coffee. We had education, and we talked with one another, and I made people sit with different people, and they got to know one another. Okay, you ready to grade? Yes?
I'm sorry to ask so many questions at a time, it's typical of me, but may I say, in terms of the examples that you're giving, I'm hearing you, and I'm a little concerned in terms of the examples that you're using, because if we're not careful, that could influence how
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Okay.
Let me say this.
Not necessarily what's happening.
I'm not saying this is what happens at St. Philip's, okay? And I do not take that. Every congregation that I have ever consulted, which they're in the hundreds, who are looking for rectors, do a parish profile. And every congregation that I've ever consulted in their parish profile says we are a warm and friendly parish. I'm just saying. Okay? You have to decide what St. Philip's is. And where your honest answer is important to those who are planning. If you think you're warm and friendly, then put that down. Give it a 5. I'm not saying you're not. It's hard for me to tell, because you guys are very nice to clergy. I mean, you are. Seriously. I come in and people seem happy to see me, even if the ones who think I'm here to, pull a coup. And you're all very polite, and we are. That's what we do, And so I can't grade this. You have to grade this. But you have an experience coming to this congregation, right? Yes.
There's room for comment.
Yes. Comment. Absolutely. Anything you want the vestry and or the planning committee to know, I notice there's very little room for comment. So don't write a paragraph. But, let us know. Okay? Everybody got the second one done? Yeah. Number 3, inspiring worship. Okay? The worship that glorifies God, as opposed to worship that glorifies the organ, or the flowers, or the stained glass windows, or the priest. Okay? That's what that means. Okay? There's an atmosphere of both joy and reverence. Someone once said about me, and it was my favorite quote about me that anybody's ever said, is that he's a serious, not sober Christian. I objected to sober, because I think I'm pretty sober. They meant somber. What?
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah. Okay. All right. And excellence in worship tasks. You've all been in places where they do, as a matter of fact, in the Episcopal Church, the further west you go, the sloppier liturgy gets. That's just a general rule. Okay, so you're on the way East Coast.
This is a direct commentary on our rector.
Say what?
It is a direct commentary on how our rector...
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I tell you what, I can walk into a congregation, this is no lie, after a lot of years, when no one's there. I can walk in the narthex and walk into the sanctuary and tell you whether or not this is a joyful congregation, without a single person being there. They take care of their place. You see there's activity around, there's pictures and there's stuff, inviting people to do things and stuff going on, and you can tell there's a sense of light. You've all been in those really dark, cavernous congregations. There's a place for that, Good Friday. But after that, we're joyful people. So the rector can help or hurt that, though. Sure, the rector can help. I've been to some places where the rector's helped it, and I've been to places where the rector hasn't been such a big help. Okay? And there's engaging sermons. Questions? Everybody ready to vote? We're all graded? Ready to move on? Oh, do people feel fed? There's an interesting thought. You've been to I've been. You probably have too. To church service where you come out and you feel more morally bankrupt than when you came in. And you've been to other services where you come in, even though the sermon was hard, you feel hope and you feel a sense that you're a part of something that's bigger than you, that your tank is filled to do battle with the weak. Intentional faith development and formation for discipleship. I will tell you that there's two key factors in churches that are growing, Episcopal churches that are growing in the United States. One is long tenure of rector. Churches that are growing have had a rector. They don't change rectors every 2 years or 3 years or even 5 years. They've had a couple of 10 or 12 year, 20 year, 25 year things. Okay? The second thing is they're teaching churches. Education's going on. People are being fed in the liturgy, and people are being fed outside of the liturgy in formation, education. Okay? What does that mean? It means the entire congregation knows how to pray and does so regularly. To get a 5 in this one, if I said to you, I'm going to pray for you, you need to be able to know what that means. Okay? And not only that, but you need to be praying regularly, by which I mean daily. Okay? And you know how to do that. It's not just a little, good morning, God. Well, that's lovely. Better than nothing at all. Okay? So the congregation knows how to pray, right? There are multiple opportunities for Bible study, Christian education, and spiritual growth across all generations. Church school is not just for kids. Matter of fact, I bet if I took the youth of this congregation and gave them a confirmation test and then gave it to you, they would do better than you. I've done that in several congregations and it's always proven true. My wife is a new citizen. If you had to take the citizenship test, she would do better than you. Just take that stuff for granted, like we've been going to church all these years, I know that stuff. Not so much. Okay? People are comfortable using Christian language. This is a big one. This is me. This is my bias. I made sure that was in here. I long for a congregation where somebody says, God bless you, and it isn't because somebody sneezed. That we used our own language, that we called people to ministry, not recruited volunteers. That we talked about sin and not the Jungian shadow side. That we stopped borrowing the language of education, of psychology, of sociology, of politics, and started using our own language. And I don't mean put on. I mean, we all know that people put that language on, and it's kind of like the Southern bless your heart. We all know what that means. But I don't mean that. I'm talking about it's authentic. It comes out of who you are. If I say to you, I got up the other morning because I have a friend who told me that if you wake up at 2:15, God is trying to tell you something, go sit in a chair and listen, and God, talk to me. That better sound authentic to you, or I'm not doing my job. And you ought to be able to do that with one another. Okay? Because in a congregation where people can talk the language, everybody's faith benefits. And everyone is engaged in some form of Christian education. We had a standard in the congregation I was rector of that we wanted 2 hours a week from you, 1 hour a week of education, and 1 hour a week of worship. It wasn't just good enough to come to Sunday church. Okay? Great away. How's St. Philip's doing? Questions? Number 5. Adventuresome, risk-taking mission, ministry, and service. Identifies opportunities for service. This is a kind of series here. Equips members for such service and seeks to advance the healing, wholeness, and justice that characterizes God's reign. I can remember in a congregation, they brought Interfaith Hospitality Network. You all know about Interfaith Hospitality Network? Anybody not know? Okay, Interfaith Hospitality Network basically is a group of churches that get together, usually 8 in each network. And they believe that it is immoral in America for anybody to sleep outside. So they say, we're not using our church at night, you come into church and sleep here. And they provide food and shelter from the weather. And if there's kids, they provide education and things like that, not tutoring and things like that, and help with jobs. It's for homeless people. Okay? This congregation, and this bunch of women came to the rector and said, we're not letting those people in our church, they'll bring in lice. To which the rector said, we have a nursery school, and 3 times a year the kids bring in lice, they're your kids. They now are in a network. That's a very important point. But that's what the risk-taking is, isn't it? It's doing something that makes you a little bit afraid, but it isn't so safe. Okay? And it isn't just doing it, because, you know, we have a tendency in the Episcopal Church to say, well, outreach, that's important. We should, you know, minister to the community. And then we find our outreach people. And there's 7 people who are the outreach group. And they're wonderful people, and they're devoted to doing all this stuff. And then everybody else doesn't have to do anything because they're doing it for us. This is equipping God's saints for ministry. All of God's saints. Okay? Let's grade the 5th one. You're going to hate this one. Extravagant generosity. Actually, the word I argued for in this one is prodigal. Remember the prodigal son? Wasteful generosity. The problem with all of you people is you were brought up in the American economic system, where you think it's important to have a budget and stick to it, unless you're the government. Generosity says, I have more than I need, others have less than I need, I will give it away. My father never got this about me. He never did. What does that mean? It means active and year-round stewardship education. Hang on to your hats. We're going to be talking about stewardship, not just money, but we're going to talk about money. I once preached a sermon with a $100 bill pasted to my forehead to remind me that it was about money today, stupid. Because we don't like to talk about that. Because it's, you know, I can ask you, what do you tell your children about sex? And you'll tell me in graphic detail. But if I ask you how much money you earn, you won't tell me. The devil lives in what we don't talk about. That's a theological truth. Okay? So year-round stewardship education, committed to work towards a personal tithe to the ministry of the congregation. This is a very important point. As an Episcopalian, you're a member of a body that believes that listen carefully, the minimum standard of giving is 10% of your income before taxes. That's a General Convention resolution that's been ratified by our General Convention every year for the last 30 years. That's what your church says. You want to know what the expectation is, that's the expectation. Now, as I used to say to everybody, and I'll say it to you, I had lots of expectation of my kids, and they didn't always live into it. It didn't mean I stopped loving them. But if I didn't articulate the expectation, what kind of a parent would I be? Okay? So there's a commitment to work towards that. All right? All find other ways to give in other ways in addition. That is to say, one of the myths in the culture here is that your charitable giving, which is defined by the Internal Revenue Service, completes your responsibility as a Christian. What you take as a charitable contribution does not have anything to do with Christian stewardship. Nothing. Zero. If you give to the zoo, it's because you believe in the zoo's ministry and you're going to do that. And some people give a lot of money to the zoo so they can be on the board and leverage their gift for what they're interested in. Same thing with politicians. You give money to the politicians so you can leverage the money, right? Okay? When you give to the church, you're giving it to that group of people that are standing right here to spend wisely, and you don't get to say anything about it. You can't leverage it. I once had a guy tell me, I want to be the biggest giver in the parish. I said, great. He said, so what's the largest pledge? I said, none of your business. He said, well, how do I know if I'm the biggest giver in the parish? I said, well, you take what you earned last year, move the decimal point over 1, and he said, I'm not giving you $500,000. I'm telling you that he earned $5 million last year, right? I said, well, that would make you the biggest giver in the parish. And if you give that, I promise you, you're not allowed to be on the vestry. You're not going to leverage that thing into telling us what to do. Because one gives for one's soul's health. That's why one gives. All right? So that's a part of that. But then you have other things you can give. And also, 16 plus hours a week in more intentional Christian activity. Why do I say that? Well, how many hours are there in a week?
168.
168. What is a tithe? 16.8 hours, right? I had a guy who was a doctor. He and his wife were both doctors. He said, the easiest thing I do is write you a check for 10% of my income. The hardest thing I do is to try and find an hour a day to do Bible school. So, how are you spending your time? Right? Now, think about St. Philip's. Ready to grade it? Questions? Okay. This one is huge. What we found in our studies is that congregations that were in trouble because either the clergy or the staff or the vestry or certain lay groups within the congregation refused to be accountable to one another. In other words, people went off half-cocked doing whatever they thought they should do, and then would argue, well, Jesus told me to do that, or, this is my faith, and all sorts of things. Healthy congregations have a high level of trust and a high level of accountability, and they go hand in hand. If there's accountability, that builds trust. Okay? What does that mean? That means that once we determine what the mission of the church is, we start saying no to things that are very good, but not a part of our mission. We can't do everything. I was at a vestry one time and they were talking about canceling the nursery school. And people from the nursery school came to the vestry meeting and said, you have to have a nursery school. We need a nursery school. Because their kids are in the nursery school, right? And one vestry person who was one of my favorite people said, yeah, well, you need groceries. That doesn't mean we should put a supermarket in the church. Need is not the right reason to do stuff. What's the right reason to do stuff in a congregation is agreement on what the mission of the church is. That's why we're working so hard on the strategic plan, to determine the direction, the mission, where we're going. And that will mean necessarily saying no to some very good things. And if we say no to it, we're not saying you're bad for thinking that's a good thing, or that it isn't a good thing. We're saying no, we're headed in this direction. If I want to go to New York, a really dumb way to go to New York is via Tallahassee. Okay? What else? Acts in concerts with others in the congregation. This is that Lone Ranger thing. You know, somebody had, I got a good idea and I'll do it. You know, we had a guy, Vestry knows this story too. He wanted, the church was cinder block and everybody was hating the cinder block. So this guy was the president of Monsanto, you know, the big company. And they have a product that covers cinder block. Only thing is it's pink and you can't cover over it. So he wanted to give us the product, which would give him about a $500,000 gift, right? And the vestry said, no, we're not going to have a pink church. You know? Good idea, thank you for your stewardship, thank you for your offer. But the whole congregation had to make sense out of that one, and pink was not their color. Okay? But accepting a call doesn't. How many times have you ever been in a group of people who say, well, I'll do that, and then you come back the next month and, well, I didn't get to it. Okay? And also, honestly reports the result of ministry undertaken. This is important because, there's no nice way to say this, is the BS factor. You know, that if you're given a job to do, and you agree to do it, and it doesn't come out right, don't make something up. We learn from our failures. Church ought to be a place where it's okay to fail. I mean, we're the only group I know in town that is preaching forgiveness. Fox News certainly isn't preaching forgiveness. So if you feel that you can honestly report that things aren't going well and you'll be loved and cared for in that process, then we will build accountability and collaboration. If you don't feel that, we won't. That doesn't mean that you're not critical. It doesn't mean that we don't exercise a critical eye to what's going on. But the criticism is not, you're bad because this didn't work. The criticism is, how could we have made this work? Or did we pick the wrong thing? You know, this is frequent, happens in budget, and it also happens in planning. Okay? In both those cases, we're today, and we're planning for 3 years out, and the thing we thought we could do, well, stuff intervenes and we don't know about it. We need to be able to let go of it and say, we guessed wrong, okay? No harm, no foul, let's guess right. What's the next thing on our list? And move on. Any questions? Ready to vote? Number 8. Huge, to quote somebody. Huge. Okay. Congregations that are healthy have a high degree of trust amongst the leadership, that is to say, the clergy trust the vestry trusts the clergy, have a high degree of trust, that is to say, the clergy trusts the altar guild trusts the clergy, have a high degree of trust, that is to say, people in the Stephen ministry trust each other to do their work. They're all over the place and there's trust going on. How do you get to trust? You do the other 7 things. That's why this is at the bottom. If you want to see a congregation that's not trusting, look at the other 7 things. If they're not there, that'll cause people not to trust. Okay? If I have a theme song for my time with you, it is the last 4 words there. 5 words. Realistic expectations and relentless clarity. I hate, it's not too strong a word for me, I hate the word transparency. Okay? It's a jargon word right now to mean you have the right to know everything. And the answer is no, you don't. You have the right to expect clarity. How is this going to work and what's going on? But for instance, there are legal ramifications. Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, in HR stuff. If stuff goes on, well, why is that person no longer here? There are only certain things you can say or you can get sued. I'm not going to be transparent with you. I'm not allowed to be. How am I doing?
Correct.
Okay? For those of you who are in the medical field, HIPAA. HIPAA doesn't say you tell everybody what's going on. You know, how's Mrs. So-and-so doing? Well, she had her gallbladder out and it bled, and then they left a scalpel in her stomach, and no, you'd be in jail. Okay? She's not doing well. Fine. So clarity is important, and realistic expectations. I don't know what you expect of one another, and I don't know what you expect of me, and I don't know what you expect of Father Reggie, and I don't know what you expect of Lorraine, and I don't know what you expect of anybody, but all I can say is examine for yourself whether those are real, whether it's possible to be that, as good as you wish we all were. And each other. This isn't just the staff. Here's a hard one. And one of the things Lorraine Armstrong and I agreed to when we had our conversation was we weren't going to agree about everything. But I assume that she loves God and God loves her and that Jesus died for her. And she assumes that Jesus died for me so we can talk. That's what gives us the ability to talk, isn't it? We're brothers and sisters in Christ. Otherwise, I don't know, we're liberals and conservatives and young and old and northerners and southerners and all sorts of things that would divvy us up. And there are actually some people who go to this church who live on Oak Island. Okay? God loves people on Oak Island. And St. James. And even Leland. Not to mention, ready, New Jersey. Okay? Understands that good people often disagree. All you need to do is look at the abortion debate in the U.S. I'm not talking about the crazy people. Crazy people often kill each other. Good people disagree. And there are good arguments on all sides of that thing. If people would listen to one another, they could learn something. And if you don't listen, there goes the trust. With me? Okay? And finally, we are looking here for unity, not uniformity. That is to say, we're all one in Christ. We don't have to believe the same thing, think the same thing. The one thing we all have to do is come to the altar rail, put our hands out, and take the body and blood of Christ. But you can do that standing or kneeling. It doesn't have to be uniform. With me? Ready to vote? Yes.
I understand what you're saying about you're not going to be that open about certain aspects, of course, legalism and so forth. But I think on the other side of that, particularly I would say in terms of this last year or so in our church, I think the matter of communication to the congregation, open communication, regular communication, is essential.
Okay, let me just concur with you. I would concur that the issue of communication is important.
Can you summarize what she said, Ken?
Yeah, what she said was she understands what I'm saying on the one hand. On the other hand, in the past year or so, the communication hasn't been all what it should be, and having regular and clear communication would help that. Am I paraphrasing you correctly? Okay. And my answer to that is that's true if you add one other word, timely. For instance, you all remember the letter that the vestry sent to you. Okay? When the vestry sent that letter, it had to compose that letter. So it saw the letter before you all did. We're not going to communicate to everybody what the drafts of the letter were. We can, once the letter was affirmed and everybody could do it, that the next day it went out. Trust me. So if you don't hear something, the issue may be timely. It's not the right time for you. Yes, you have a right to honest and open communication. Absolutely. That's why we're doing this. Okay? That's why, as I said to you before, the vestry is going to do stuff, the strategic planning group is going to do stuff, the vestry is going to affirm or ratify it or amend it, and then it's coming to you. Everything that we do is eventually coming to you. When the search committee is formed and the search committee is meeting, you're not going to know who the candidates are. Sorry, you're just not going to. That's not done, okay? When they elect someone, the minute someone is elected and accepted, you will know. You will not know beforehand. And here's something that happens frequently. Someone has issued a call and the courage to take a couple of weeks to decide. So everybody's on tenterhooks. We're not going to announce that until, you know, the fat lady sings, until we got a deal. Okay? So timely is an issue here. Any other questions? Yes?
Really just a comment. I know it's probably assumed as an assumption, but respectfulness, I think, is a really big part of how
I absolutely agree with you. And I also would agree with you that a piece of that comes out of this. I will be respectful with you if I assume that you are the potential of God's word to me. You know? And that, so that means listening as well as talking. And Lord knows I can talk. Okay, any other questions?
So what's going to happen with these things?
What's going to happen with these are you're going to pass them all to the center aisle. And
Jim, we have somebody at every door.
You're going to have a basket, we'll run up and down this aisle, and we'll collect them. It is going to go to me. I'm going to collate them. That is to say, I'm going to give you, and I will give the vestry and the planning committee not only the average score, but the median score, and all of those statistical things that Bob has had to do. And so that they know that there were one person who said it was a 1, and one person had a 5, and everybody was clustered at 3. Some kind of an analysis, but they can also have access to the actual sheets. Yes? Would you like it shared with you? Okay. Yeah, I'll put it in some shareable form, probably in the evenings. That comes out on Fridays, one of these Fridays. Probably not this week, but soon. Yes.
So then the intent is that the strategic committee is going to use this as part of their activities?
And the investors can use it as part of theirs. Both. Some
sort of strategy as soon as we come up with a score of 2.5.
Yeah.
Some sort of strategy to move it up to 3.5 or
Well,
4.
the answer to that is that the strategic planning group will look at that and decide, because we can only do some things. But the goal is not to get 8 5s. The goal may be to get 2 5s and keep everybody above 3 or something. Yeah. So they will decide based on a lot of factors. This is yet another set of factors to consider when thinking what's the direction for our future. If, for instance, I'm just making this up because I haven't seen your things, if you had 5s on everything but the last one, I would suspect that that would be rise to the top of the strategic issue. You know, so it depends on how that's distributed out and how it looks. But both the vestry and the planning group will have an opportunity to look at the data and massage it. And we'll let you know as we go on.
Just an idea, just a thought.
Yes, ma'am.
To do this again in 2 years or 3 years, to see what has happened, see what kind of progress.
Great idea. Great idea. God willing, 3 years from now, I won't be with you. And so, but, you know, there's corporate memory here, and leadership will know that. Yeah, thank you.
Do you feel that this is a big enough sampling of the parish family to get an honest statistical basis? I mean, this is LOSA, and it happens to be green.
Yep.
I wonder if there might not be another, since this is going to take 2 years total, might not be a good idea to offer this chance to vote.
I would take that under advisement. I will listen to what the vestry has to say about that. My own gut level is we gave you 2 months to know that this was coming. It was in every e-news and every Sunday announcement that I made and was at every service I was at. And as I said before, I will always weight heavily the opinions of those who care enough to show up. Now, that's not to say that people that aren't here don't care. And I hear what you're saying. So I'll ask the vestry and see what they think. Fair enough? Yes.
I'd like to make a comment.
Please
I
do.
need to stand to make this comment. Since my wife and I have been attending this church, can you hear me? Can you hear me back here? Before we started attending, you have a member of this delegation who had always extended an invitation. His name is Tommy Harrelson, whom I love and adore. I call him the secretary. However, this is what I want you to know. Tommy Harrelson is indicative of what I have observed in this church. Very inviting, very welcome, very good. I needed to share that with you. So sometimes all it takes is one person to extend the welcome and others to receive. And certainly that has been the case here.
Well, thank you.
So that means that an opportunity exists for all of you to become Tommy Harrelsons. Other comments or questions? Okay, if you look at the bulletin and the schedule of adult ed going forward, you're going to see that we have lots and lots of interruptions for this 9 o'clock hour. Next Sunday, Father Reggie will be doing an adult ed. The following Sunday is Brunswick Town. The following Sunday is Mother's Day breakfast. I'm not getting in the way of mothers. Not going to happen. Okay. The following Sunday, Father Reggie will be doing a thing. That's the 21st of May, and the 28th is Memorial Day weekend, so there will be none. One of the things that's been enjoyed. Yes, ma'am.
That's the Memorial Day service.
Right. There is a Memorial Day service, but we're not doing adult ed. Okay. I have been thrilled with the attendance that this time has generated, and the conversation that it's generated, and the questions that we've been able to discuss and answer. I'm not really happy about taking a break for the summer, but there is, of course, the beach ministry which meets at the time that this meets. So in consultation with the staff and with the wardens, we decided that we would do one each month. One in June, one in July, and one in August. And it will run right against the beach ministry, but I have 3 things that are the next part of what we have already presented to the vestry that I want you to know. It's forming our thinking in terms of how we're moving forward, so that in the fall, when the vestry and hopefully the planning committee has finished their work, we'll be able to present those things, and you will have had the background that they've had to do what we're doing. So I just want you to know, look for the announcements, because there will be one in June, one in July, and one in August. Okay? Any other questions? Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Right, oh, thank you. Yeah, you all know that you can watch any of these on the website. If you go to the website and go to education, a little drop-down menu will say adult or youth. Click on adult and it has all of these, and there are YouTubes of this. You will be on TV. Yes, and we encourage you to do that and encourage others. And frankly, this is another thing. If you know people that weren't here or whatever, say, at least let them see this and know it. This is, you're not even meeting a senior. Okay? Have a wonderful day. For those of you who are staying, service starts in 27 minutes. Thank you.